since we're talking about the US and how the US, in a sense, is redrawing the rules of the game, let me talk to you about your other favorite subject, which is China, and what this does, in fact, to China. Because if the Fed continues to hike, and the commentary seems to suggest that we should be prepared for at least 3 hikes come 2017, what does it do to China?
Well, I think China is still the biggest risk to the global economy. And
so you believe that the next recession will still be made in China?
Yeah. Like in terms of, I think that the developed world has seen its worst in terms of what had to happen. Europe's already suffered 2 recessions last 7 to 8 years. Japan has basically become inconsequential with no growth because it has a serious demographic issue. And then you have the United States where the animal spirits have just been revived so late in the economic cycle. They've been growing at 1.5%, 2%. Now all of a sudden you're going to get at least some blip up because of the big revival in animal spirits. So I think that as far as China is concerned, it's a real problem at 2 levels. Today, there's one statistic about China which you should remember, that it takes $4 of debt to create $1 of GDP growth in China. At the peak of the US housing bubble, it took $3 of debt to create $1 of GDP growth in the United States. So this is a mother of all bubbles that we're seeing in China as far as the increase in debt is concerned. And then because they want to keep the debt going, the amount of money circulating China today is larger, 40% larger than the money in the United States. So you have a huge amount of money circulating in China, which is creating all sorts of domestic bubbles in China. But but it all wants to get out, right, in terms of a lot of it. So a lot of the money is leaving China, and they keep putting up gates out there to try and block this from happening. But as the United States increases interest rates, that wall of money will continue to leave. And at some point in time, China will really have to face the music here, because if you're going to have such a huge creation of debt, and then all of a sudden your ability to create that is going to be limited because money is leaving your country, I think that's going to have serious implications for the global economy. So I'd say as I look out at 2017, I think the momentum today is with the developed markets. And I think as far as China is concerned, it remains the biggest risk to the global economy. And as far as emerging markets are concerned, luckily this is 35% of the global economy. They can keep finding some spots to do well. But the growth models in a lot of stuff that we believed about emerging markets for the last 20, 30 years are being seriously challenged today by the way the global economy is shifting, with deglobalization now the big buzzword
and a very real threat.
And a very real threat. I mean, it's already happening. Even before these elections took place of Trump, deglobalization was already sort of on its way.
You were talking about whether this will in fact reap dividends for the BJP politically or not. And outside of economics, you also spend a lot of your time on the election yatra. You cover state elections as well, Ruchir. UP is coming up. Do you believe that this narrative is actually going to work for them politically? A lot of people are comparing this to, the days of Indira Gandhi and Garibi Hatao, and whether Modi is actually positioning himself in that sort of avatar. Do you believe that this is going to pay dividends politically for them?
Listen, I have no idea as yet, because I think that we haven't really heard much from what's happening on the ground in UP, apart from some people who have been there and they all think that there is economic distress, but at the same time they also come back with reports.
The BJP holds up the municipal election results as sort of a vote of approval for demonetization,
right. so I'm saying
on and so forth.
Yeah, but in the past, though, having looked at Indian elections, those election results have been very poor forecasters of what happens in the main elections, by the way. So I wouldn't read too much into it. But having said that, the anecdotal evidence is that a lot of people are quite tolerant of this pain, that they're saying that, because they think that this is a bold step. They think that this is something which is right, because it's sort of a very emotive thing, that, like you're basically stalking these corrupt rich people, and so that's good, like in a way, right? That's what happened in the 1970s, also back here in India. But in terms of what's going to work today, I don't know. But here's what we know about UP, that my own feeling is that it is very much going to be an election dominated by this traditional factors of caste. But we in the media and everybody is going to portray that election as a referendum on demonetization. So I think that that's going to be
Which is missing the woods for the trees.
Yeah, but I think that, because I'm not sure that's going to be a big factor in the election, because caste is so important, and in terms of what's going to happen out there. So this is going to be like a fascinating thing, that even though the election may be won and lost in UP based on the caste arithmetic, right, in terms of it, with everyone debating where will the Muslim vote go this time, because if it goes to Mayawati, she's home. If it doesn't go to her, then like the BJP has a chance if they're able to split the vote between the Congress SP kind of combined. So I think that that election will be fascinating. I'm going to come back to India at the end of February to basically travel to UP. In fact, I think it'll be our 25th election trip that we have done over the last 20 years, and I think 7 of them I've done to UP, because there is no state like UP for politics. You can just sort of stop at any dhaba in UP and get people very activated about politics, but it is very much still about caste arithmetic in that state. And so I'm not sure that demonetization will be such a big issue on the ground there, but we in the media are going to portray that as a referendum on demonetization. But what's happening regarding the caste arithmetic, I don't know as yet. I want to go with an open mind when we do go in February to travel across UP.
So, Ruchir, before we close, what would be the key inflection points? What would be the key risks that you would watch out for in 2017?
No, as I said, that what's happening, like the United States has major global implications, particularly for India. How are we going to respond to that? Are we sort of even paying any attention to that? Are we going to respond to the dramatic cut in corporate tax rates by following up? If they have a destination tax, what are we going to do? And then, of course, that how bad a hit is this to animal spirits? Because at the end of the day, it's money that makes the world go round. Yeah. It's the entrepreneurs, it's the business people who create wealth in an economy. And if that will that process come back to normal, and how quickly will it come back? I think that those are going to be the two key things to watch. And then lurking in the background is China. That like the dead bomb is ticking in China, and if the Fed keeps increasing interest rates 2 or 3 times, will that dead bomb finally sort of explode? I think that's what we have to keep a lookout for. But I think as far as India is concerned, the next 12 to 18 months to me look very challenging, because the reason you invested in India was for high economic growth. That's what this market always traded at. That's the premium like it traded at.
The government believes that we will continue to be the fastest growing economy in the world.
Well, I mean, in terms of, that's fine. In terms of, that may still be the case. But I think that for now, at least, that's not the case in terms of like the hit we have taken. And how soon the economy comes back to a normalized path is what we're all trying to sort of look at. But I think that the big game changer and the agenda from an economic standpoint is going to be set by the United States in terms of what it's going to do with all these changes that the new administration is making, because this is something dramatic we're looking at. This is not status quo. And we have to respond to that. So what I would like to see from our side, the Indian side, is
an equally aggressive response.
Exactly. It's an equally aggressive response. If the world's biggest market is making these changes, how are we going to respond to it? That, for me, has to be the big focus of discussion out here.
So outside of the US, the bright spots that you would watch out for?
Well, I'd say that Europe, for me, looking much more resilient, that because people are very pessimistic on Europe. And in fact, last year, or rather this year, at this closing, is going to be the first time that the European economy would have grown at a slightly faster pace in the United States since the recession ended. So the slow comeback of Europe, I think, is important. And I'd say so, and there's a lot of opportunity there because valuations there are really distressed. So you can get some very cheap valuations out there, and some markets like Poland, etc., are trading at 20-year lows. So, you have real value out there at a time when a slight comeback is on its way across the continent. And within Asia, I would say the Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Southeast Asia, to me looks okay. And in Latin America, something very interesting is going on. That just as across the world we talk about the rise of populism, about populists are rising, Latin America is going the other way, which is that they're going back to economic orthodoxy. So all the Wall Street crowd, etc., they are back in terms of running economic policy as far as Latin America is concerned, from Brazil to Argentina to Peru. If you look at it, it's basically returning to economic orthodoxy. So their populism has been discredited, because the populists were in power over the last 10 to 15 years. So that also makes Latin America, for the first time in a very long time, a pretty interesting place, because they're doing the kind of economic orthodox stuff that we crave for out here, at least as investors. So to me, these are the bright spots that I'd look out for in 2017.
And India is not one of them?
Well, so far, no. As I said, but like about India, there are 2 operating rules about India that I've always kept in mind.
It can disappoint the pessimists and the optimists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's no point getting too optimistic or pessimistic on India. This is a very resilient economy, like it'll carry on. But the next 12 to 18 months, it's very hard for me to see as to how we get back to being, like a really fast-growing economy, given the disruption that we are dealing with. But still, it's very hard to ever disengage from here. There's enough opportunity out here and diversity, but still, that's like a big concern. So that's one. And the second thing, I think, which, to close the loop on what we said, or how we started it, that the capacity of this country to follow this old mantra, that if it ain't broke, you fix it until it is quite incredible, right? So, just when we had some momentum going, I think that's what's happened so far. But I think that the politics now, I mean, all the attention is going to turn to the politics.
Yeah.
That in terms of what happens in UP, and then after that, if the government loses or wins, then after that, what does it do? How does it interpret that message? And then what we do. But I'm really looking to see that, is there any way I'm going to respond to what's happening like in the United States? Because if we keep sort of just giving sops, let's say, and don't do anything about changing our tax structures, or don't bring our corporate tax rates down dramatically, I think that we're going to lose out in this pivot that's happening to the United States.
Well, we're being told that it's likely to be an innovative and a bold budget. Maybe the government has something up its sleeve. Maybe we see the government move much more radically on bringing down corporate tax rates, because the roadmap was 25%, and we haven't really moved the needle much on that. But Ruchir, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you joining us here on the show.
Thanks.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV 18 special from all of us here. Goodbye, and many thanks for watching.